Welcome everybody. This is Andrew Hunziker, CPA with Dope CFO. Today we're going to have one of our student members, Adam Remis, on the call with us today to go over his business and how things are going for him, I think very well lately. So Adam, a quick background and correct me if I'm wrong, 25 years of tax and accounting. You founded your hemp CFO firm, but you're actually doing both hemp, CBD, and cannabis as well. You've been in our program now for a while and landed many clients, including good ones on retainers. So today we're going to talk to Adam about his process, how to experiment with acquisition methods, and see, I know you have been trying a lot of different things as well, and also talk about our community. So why don't we jump in and say welcome to you, and why don't you real quick, give a little more about your background, when you exactly
Sure,
got into the niche and joined our program.
sure. So I actually am a CPA. Been a CPA for about 25 years, and I actually have a background of tax and accounting, and actually have been a CFO of both public and private companies. So I'm kind of, I think, a little unusual because I've got knowledge of lots of little things, but not like deep knowledge of any one thing. So, but that I think helps me from a broader perspective. But I think the program, you don't need one, you don't need, if you're a bookkeeper, the program still works. If you're a tax guy, the program still works. And if you're just a CFO, the program still works. And we can kind of get into that. But I started off just recently in this field, and all my whole company is 100% focused on cannabis. And actually, almost all my clients are plant-touching cannabis companies. I started working in 2019 with a very large multi-state operator, and that company, like many other publicly traded multi-state operators, ran into some major financial issues. And so I ended up leaving them towards the end of 19, and then just trying to figure out what my next steps were, is kind of
Tell,
what the next steps or
tell
what
me
I'm
real
going to do.
quick, you're located in California?
No, actually, I'm located in Phoenix, Arizona, and the
I'm
good news about this program is you could be anywhere. You could be in the
actually,
Bahamas. I've been telling my wife, I was like, we should move to the Bahamas because it has internet and we're
yeah.
good. But actually, almost all my clients are in California.
Okay, that's why I was thinking, I was like, I was boxing you into California, and that's a great point. Yeah, you can, I've got two nieces coming into accounting. One's going bookkeeping route and one's CPA. And I was like, wow, what a great time. Not only with all these remote tools that you can build a national firm from anywhere in the world on your boat if you want to, but also a birth of a niche. It's just an awesome time. I'm like you, 25 years exactly. I got my CPA in 95. And so it's, yeah, I've still got years left, but I wish I'd gotten in some of this stuff earlier. But
Well, and if any of your nieces want a job, just send them on over to my way. I'm sure I'll keep her busy, keep them
there,
busy.
yeah, my one's, yeah, she's finishing her CPA right now, and then my other one's just starting college and wants to get a bookkeeping license. But
Oh,
we'll see how it goes.
I was gonna say I'm good to go. I'll train. No big deal.
Right. And
It, it's remote. It doesn't matter.
so that's a great point. So let me jump in and so you were working at that, and gosh, we had a lot of similar backgrounds because I was kind of working at a bigger operator as well before I jumped into just client work. But you landed a bunch of clients in a short amount of time. Why don't you tell us about those clients and kind of what some of your systems are and client acquisition? I talk to people for years in every niche, including myself. It's the one thing, like, we love working for ourselves, but it's the one thing none of us like. And that even expands to, if you could be a plumber or an electrician or an accountant. We all just want to do the work we like to do and not go find clients.
Well, and I agree with that. And I think that's the hardest piece of the program. By far, that's the hardest piece of the program. And there are just tons of ways to find CEOs. And you kind of bring this to our attention through the program. Yeah, I know you have a deliverable that like walks through like 4 or 5 pages of here's all the different ways to find
Yeah.
CEOs and cannabis CEOs, and you just kind of have to try and figure it out. For me, what we've been doing is I kind of stumbled upon a sales guy who is willing to work on commission. As I receive money, he receives money. It just seems like a fair give and take
Yeah.
there. And so he's doing cold calling to licensee holders. And we actually have someone today doing additional cold calling for us. And so appointments get set up. And as appointments get set up, then we start kind of walking through that sales cycle.
So you,
There's sometimes I've also received a few via LinkedIn. So I've got a couple that way as well, but primarily I'm kind of working through from a sales perspective this one way of going basically directly to the licensee holder. Licensee holders are always going to be the co-founders. They're always going to be the ones who are responsible. They're always going to be the presidents and CEOs. So those are the ones that we end up talking to, and it's been good
that's
discussions.
that's a great point, and I think I list many ways in the program as well, and it's just endless from articles to LinkedIn to what you did, or or advertising or whatever it is. And the thing is, there is a luck component involved, but obviously the more things you're out there doing and trying, the more chance you have to be lucky. And so I've gotten amazing clients from the most random ways. And I think old school, when I moved to Bend, Oregon, the first time, my first really good client came off this junior banker that was brand new at Wells Fargo, and he kept bugging me to go to coffee, and I didn't want to go because he was like 20. And sure enough, he fed me absolute best client I had the first 5 years. When I finally went to with coffee with him, he just handed it to me on a silver spoon. They were doing an exit and they needed a CFO to help, and it ended up being a 6-figure job. But I think the more things people can do, the more they try, and you just figure out your own little twist or whatever, um, as well, to whatever might work. But you just
Yep.
got to put that effort out there
Well,
and
and
don't
I
get
I have
focused
a
on.
story. I have a story as well. I had one of our first clients. They had all this tax stuff, and I've been working on the tax returns and prior year stuff, and they were a really small at the time, a really small delivery client, right? So we priced them at 500 or $1,000 a month. Now they're my best client. It turned out they went from, like $20,000-$30,000 of revenues to their best month ever last month, $350,000 of revenues. And
Wow.
guess what? My fee itched up just like theirs. And
Yes.
so it just really just depends. And so we've got fees, monthly fees ranging from one all the way up to, 5,000-6,000 a month. And it's really, from a monthly revenue standpoint, definitely, even though I just started in late January with you and your program, I had some other opportunities, but we're reaching, close to 15 to 20. We'll
Yeah.
be very close here very quickly.
And you can quickly grow that. And it's, I tell people too, as you find those clients, make sure, I call it the alpha role in our program, keep that assertiveness. I dealt with a 45-minute call yesterday where it's so tempting. And I did this, I made every mistake myself for years. It's tempting to get on a phone with a CEO and let them grill you about your resume. It's tempting to do free work. It's tempting to review their tax returns. It's tempting to tell them you'll come out to their site if they're in your hometown. And I tell people, the second you hand that alpha role over to the CEO, you never get it back. And so then sometimes it translates to 4 months later, people are in cleanup and they're like, well, why won't they give me what they need? Well, they're treating you like an employee. They've taken the power of the relationship. So if you can start from day one, I'd actually rather people price it lower, but keep the role of, hey, here's the questions we're going to ask you. If we can work with you, here's the offer letter. Here's what we're going to deliver. Here's the price. Here's how we do it. Take it or leave it. And including remote, including price, like you said, price goes up with your growth. So they already know that ahead of time. And you just get those things laid out on the table. And if it may take a little bit longer to land that first client, but when you do, they're going to be a really good one.
Well, and then also you put it into your engagement letters. I mean, as
Yeah,
you grow, we grow. Very simple,
put it in
right?
there.
As your business grows, we will need to readdress what our fees are going to be, because simply there'll be more work. As there are
Yeah,
more revenues, there's more work. That's simple.
a lady yesterday, I mean, I said, I hear you because I've done this myself. She thought this lady was very sweet and she decided not to get a retainer, and she worked about a month and a half on cleanup, and it was way messier than she thought. And then the lady, and then she sent her bill over, which she said in the engagement letter, it's going to be 100 an hour for cleanup, and the lady refused to pay, and she ended up losing everything. I was like, you just can't cut those corners. You get that engagement letter, you collect your money up front. We do not do collections. We don't sell inventory. We're service providers. We need to get paid up front.
Yeah,
And
I've always I'm at the and even in the very beginning and still to this point, I strive to have no accounts receivable.
yes, and I used to too. And
Very simple.
you strive, and I do it now. It is insisted upon. I told her too, when I moved to Oregon, I had a 10-year CFO job at a really cushy oil and gas back in Oklahoma. And I moved out here. My very first client ran this really cool nonprofit in Portland, and she was amazing and everyone loved her. I was like, oh, and she ended up not paying me. I think it was $1,200, and I never got that money. But and $1,200 is not much, but it just, I mean, still today, 10 years later, when I think about it, it makes me mad that lady. And so it's just, yeah, it's not worth, it's really not even the money. It's the anger and emotional tied up.
Yep.
And when someone doesn't pay you, um, it's really annoying. So,
Well, your time's worth money. And at the
yeah.
end of the day, they need to respect that. And if they don't respect that, then you know what? It's good to find out now than later.
Um, I know we've touched, I'm going to jump back into our questions, make sure I hit
Sure.
some. So what was the biggest challenge you faced testing client acquisition methods? Um, as you went into there, I know we've covered some of this, but if there was anything more that was challenging as you got into this.
You know, for me, it's kind of an attitude of never say no to anything, right? I mean, you got to try different things, and some of that may be to kind of look at their prior year tax returns and give them some advice. It just depends on what the scenario is. I think that what we do from our perspective in marketing, we give an hour free tax advice discussion. And so they hop on a call with me and I get to learn about their company, and we talk about what their issues are and what the concerns are. And sometimes they have, management companies that are overlaying their business. And I'm like, no, here's the conservative approach. If IRS comes in, here's what's going to happen. And so we kind of give that tax advice and be open really, really right up front. The other thing that I've tried and just put out there is I've actually got a person offshore for a whopping $3 an hour. And she is a virtual assistant out of Philippines. She has access to my LinkedIn account. And she's created a list of 800 LinkedIn prospects that I want to really go after. And so she's sending out individual LinkedIn first connection requests. And then I'm going to kind
Yeah.
of walk through and have a series of emails. I try to do some of those automated things like Alfred and those, and I got shut down with LinkedIn.
Oh, I
Can you
know. Yeah.
believe it? And then
Sometimes
I'm like, well, this is not worth it. Let me just follow the rules. What are the rules? Well, you have to do it manually. Okay, well, if I do it or someone else, doesn't matter. So manually, so someone actually is manually doing it for me. And that's actually starting to get some traction as well. So
And yeah,
it just depends.
it just depends. And it does go back to, at the end of the day, whatever the method, if you can connect immediately with the owner of the business, or in cannabis could be the investor, because sometimes I've had clients that are
Yes.
investor. If you can connect with that power person right off the bat, as opposed to, drifting in the back door through meeting the banker to the CEO, that does work sometimes, but it's not to say ignore all the bankers and lawyers. Connect
No.
with them. And I've got, I'm in a small town here in Bend, Oregon, and I connected with a cannabis attorney here, and we referred work back and forth, maybe like one client every 6 months or so. It's not that much, but it adds up.
It adds up, absolutely. And I've got resources where I've been working and talking to a variety of companies. Like, it turns out, in addition to all my background, I sit on the board of directors for West Valley National Bank. And West Valley
Okay.
National Bank is a cannabis bank. It's actually
Oh,
out of
wow.
Arizona. And so I actually have a unique understanding of what, from a cannabis banking perspective, what they want, what they need. And so I've been having very good success in trying to find cannabis companies banking solutions. And I have attorneys. We have attorneys in our group that are fantastic from a tax and law perspective. I've got merchant processing folks. You just get a lot of resources by
Yeah.
just exclusively talking to people through LinkedIn and others and getting comfortable. And I also even have a great cannabis payroll company that all they do is payroll, and they're fantastic.
And
So
that's, you brought up another point about, so our community, that we have people now in all 50
yeah,
states and such a variation of backgrounds. Like you say, you've got some banking knowledge, someone else has some insurance knowledge, or we have people that are strong in IT. And what's interesting is that community is so, I actually, and I've debated this with a couple of people. I feel our network now of 300 of us in all 50 states with all these skill sets, from attorneys to CFOs to CPAs to bookkeepers, is probably the premier network of cannabis tax and legal knowledge in the US right now. And it's
well, you
great.
want to hear something even funnier. I was talking to another dope CFO program participant this morning at 9 a.m. Where's the guy based out of? Oh, Jerusalem.
Oh yeah, so Sam,
Damn, yeah,
yeah, he's a great
yeah.
guy, and so yeah, we're all over the world, and
You
even
are.
another thing that was in the community that you posted. What's interesting about it makes this fun and exciting. These CEOs and their attorneys and the investors, they come up with every which way weird transactions that you've got to figure out, and they're going to somehow share work, and they're all trying to kind of get out of tax or reduce it, or make partnerships. And so it is complex, and you got to stay in
Do
your
you want
brain.
me to tell them about my last post
Yeah,
for just a second?
tell about that. It's interesting. Yeah,
Is this funny? I mean, totally off topic. I apologize.
so that's
Correct me
good.
if this is all right. But so I have a client and a delivery client in Northern Cal, and they have a buddy of theirs who does not have a delivery license, and he wants to use the company's A license. So we got company A and we got company B, and now the questions come in to the fact that company A, which is my client, then the question is, well, they should get some revenue or net money for company B for lending their license. And you come into these weird case scenarios of, well, what happens in 3 years and you guys break up and company A gets an audit? How do we tie out revenues between the two companies? Because in fact, it's really only one company, but Metric is going to be reporting. Metric is the
Yeah,
government agency that is required, that all these companies are required to report all their income. It's like a tracing of seed to sale.
yeah.
Anyways, how do we tie that out? And we don't have control of company B's books. They could put anything down regardless of 280E. But are you responsible from a licensing perspective? And how does that work? So it's just some
It's
weird questions.
it will
Fun stuff.
it will keep you very interested.
I love
So
it. I
let me
absolutely love it.
and we kind of hit on this as well. So you have a unique background, and how does that, kind of with the last question, tell us more about your, and this chance to kind of tell as well, and to your clients or prospects, the special things you can offer, and then how that ties in to our program and the community. You can build whatever your weak point is. It's okay. Like, I'm a CFO and I don't do bookkeeping or tax returns, but that's fine. I can get someone else in the group that does.
Absolutely. I think that the group has a variety of folks in it. For me, I'll just kind of talk about our business and from what we value. We have the ability to stretch across most disciplines. We provide the bookkeeping, we provide the accounting at the end of the month, we do the sales tax returns both for the state and the local jurisdictions. We understand 280 and we do the tax return prep, but then overlaying all that, I've been that CFO. And because I've been that CFO, we talk about strategy and talk about what next steps are.
Yeah.
I've got a delivery client, for example, and it turns out all their money is inside inventory. And I'm like, well, you got to pay taxes. We got to pay taxes? Yeah, you have to pay taxes. You got to liquidate some of that inventory to pay. That's the next step. So that's the next step that we're going through. But to answer your question, if a person just has bookkeeping, for example, there are a ton of folks in our program, all they do is taxes, and they'd love to marry up with you. If you have a bookkeeper, if you have a tax person and you just do tax returns, then you hate bookkeeping, there's plenty of bookkeepers who would love to assist. Or you can kind of go offshore for $5 an hour and find someone there. There's plenty of resources to do data entry into QuickBooks. I have a couple, and you could easily do that as well. And then what's the beauty of this is tax attorneys. There's some good tax attorneys that really share some valuable and insightful knowledge about what they're coming into for their clients that are obviously in front of the IRS. So I think you get a huge variety here among the different pieces.
I think that's great. Yeah, where different people can meet up and work together. So many people have even formed little partnerships where, yeah, a bookkeeper might refer to a tax person back and forth, and or CFO.
Yep.
And that way you can still give the client everything, and even question and answers in our group. Like, I'll notice, it's not just bookkeepers asking questions of CFOs. I've seen like a CFO, maybe even me, say, hey, I'm stuck in zero. Can a bookkeeper help me? Or QuickBooks. And our bookkeepers have knowledge that, yeah, some of us may get stuck in as well. So it really goes both ways.
Well, the deliverables also within the program, especially the hardcore deliverables, not the marketing ones. I'm talking about the hardcore ones. Like, you've got some great deliverables around example chart of accounts for dispensary, example chart of accounts for all verticals, dispensaries. You've got it for cultivation, manufacturing, distribution. And it's not just, oh, here's a layout chart of accounts, but you kind of organize in such a way that if you want to upload it into QuickBooks, it's fairly easy. But besides that, there's just a ton of deliverables when it comes to indirect costs for cultivation and manufacturing that I think are really, really invaluable of how to set up and organize financials and to really make sure that you've got bulletproof financials that are set up for your clients. Because I think our goal and everyone who should be joining the program, it's not to do crappy work. They can get that from any bookkeeper. Yeah. It's really to add value, to make sure that you're saying, hey, I'm going to prepare the books as if tomorrow an IRS agent is going to come in and say, where are your accounting books? So we, for every single receipt, for every single expense, attach the actual physical copy to QuickBooks so you can actually see it. So you can pop in and it's $580 to a lawyer. Well, let's see the invoice. Boom. You can see it right there. So, and then also really have strong work papers at the end of the month that walk through for cultivation and manufacturing, all the potential indirect costs that could be associated and how you came to those costs and what was going on. So there's quite a bit of delivery, a lot of delivery products that are included in the program.
And so, yeah, that's great because we want, to have that audit trail from financials all the way backwards to invoice and tick marked and tied out, so that you're right. If you die tomorrow and the IRS agent shows up tomorrow, they're still okay. They're not scrambling.
Yeah. And then the other huge benefit is, and I don't know if you talk about this, that besides the Facebook, but the Q&A meetings that we have, every week, those are really helpful as well. I mean, I think especially when we get directed on a specific topic and take an hour and just talk about cultivation and manufacturing, dive in for cost accounting. And I mean, you had a robust, a couple of weeks ago, we were very robust, and it took us an hour just to get to that one focused item. And And I know you
Yeah.
probably were regurgitating some of the things that were already in the deliverables, but it helped because we came up with a lot of good questions and
Yeah,
discussions.
and then we'll dive into topics around like that latest TICTA report or whatever. So that's fun to
Yes.
hash around
Yep.
as well. And some of this stuff we're doing, there are no complete answers. Sometimes it's opinions, and different people have different opinions, and
Yep.
there's a spectrum of aggressive versus conservative, and so you got to figure out where you're going to play on that spectrum as well.
Well, and I like to give my clients the group, I would say, inside Dope CFO for the most part, because a lot of tax attorneys are there and they're seeing the worst, is obviously fairly conservative in their opinions and their approach. But at the end of the day, you're a preparer, and at the end of the day, the responsible party for the financials and the numbers that are included in these tax returns are not the preparer, but it's the actual taxpayer.
Yeah.
And so if the taxpayer wants to be a little more aggressive and understands the rationale and understands the rules, well, we can do that. We just need to protect ourselves from a tax preparation point of view. But
Yeah.
there are different spectrums that I think if you have some really good tax understanding, you can kind of present and let the taxpayer understand the ramifications and issues.
Well, do you have any final advice? We've covered all kinds of
Oh,
things.
I'm sorry. I know we're
No,
kind of going over on
oh no,
timing.
I think we've done great. But I was going to say, do you have? It is such an interesting industry, but messy. Just for someone who's thinking about getting into cannabis accounting, do you have? It can be scary on the one hand, but on the other hand, it can be very exciting because there's a lot of opportunity.
I think that there is just a ton of opportunity. I don't know if you heard, but I heard a statistic that when New Jersey and New York open up, there's going to be about 8,000 licenses between the two states.
Well, I'm
I don't know
full.
if you heard that, but
But
that's
yeah,
just one
no,
stat.
but let's just think about that a minute. So New Jersey and New York together, I think have something around 30 million people.
Yeah,
Oklahoma has about 2 million people. There's 8,000 companies in Oklahoma. So
unbelievable. Talk about
think about that.
oversaturated.
So New
Talk about
York and New
oversaturated.
Jersey
Oh my God.
should have. So that's my point when I say these new states like Illinois that are 4x Oklahoma or Colorado or Florida or Texas or New York, it's going to be way more than 8,000
Well, I
companies.
think Florida is a unique beast and very, very difficult because I think Florida, I'm not sure if you know, but Florida, you're only allowed to sell what you grow. And so
Yeah,
only the big boys are primarily in there because those are the guys who actually won those licenses. For the most part, the little guys aren't. But to answer your first question about, is this scary? Yes, it is scary. A lot of CPAs, we're both CPAs, right? A lot of CPAs are like, no, I'm not touching that. I'm
yeah,
afraid. I'm like, what are you afraid of? I mean, at the end of the
yeah,
day, you have to ethically, from a CPA perspective, if I had a mob client and they're working on an illegal product, we still need to service them from an IRS point of view. I mean, right? So it doesn't matter. We still need to help them, but for some reason they're just not mainstream, and there's a lot, and I think that adds value, and help. But
yeah,
I think when you help companies, and this is the value that I'm starting to see, and I was just off a client call and they're just
yeah,
thanking me profusely because we just, you have the opportunity to work with these small businesses to completely turn around circumstances.
yeah.
I've got this client's in tax court, and they had a problem because square.com had the social security number of the owner instead of the EIN. They reported all the income in
Oh,
17 of the EIN, and they
that
didn't report.
happens.
And so that tax court got them because in 17 they've got all this income based upon their 1099-K, and it turns out it's not income because all the income already was up. So it's taken us like 3 months to get through square.com to actually
Yeah,
reissue the 1099, but you're helping them, and they're like,
yeah.
no one's ever helped us,
They love it, and
and they love it,
they're
and
getting
and that's
help. And
really the thing. The hard part with any business, and the hard part with this, is not that you select a niche, you're dedicated to the niche, and you stay with that niche. I think that's the best part of this whole thing. The hard part, absolutely, and I'm going to say it over and over, is getting the clients. You just have to be
and
consistent and you have to share the knowledge and the information that you've already gotten in Dope CFO and become that expert out there and talk to as many people as possible and continuing to talk to as many people as possible. And soon enough, you'll get the first few.
It comes and it's, yeah, there's, I think, something like 50,000 companies right now in the US, if you include CBD hemp, and we're going to be 5 to 10x that in 5 years. So there's many, many new companies that don't even exist. And like you just said, you educate them. I had a client in 2018. I had talked to him on and off for a year just because I was in my hometown and I knew him. I'm in a small town. And he used to, when he came on, I think it was 2,000 a month or 3,000. He was like, this is crazy. I can't imagine paying this much. But within a year, he was paying 10 to 12 grand a month, and he totally got it. So he didn't get it at first, paying a little bit, but then over time, he got it, and he had 8 entities and 3 verticals and all this stuff going on. And they finally, once they get educated, they're like, yeah, I should be paying this amount for a
Well, and
cash.
it's funny, we were just talking to a prospect about 4 or 5 hours ago. The guy has 17 licenses. He's built out 9 buildings.
Wow.
He hasn't gotten anything through the certificate of occupancy yet. He's got his first building going to certificate of occupancy in about 4 or 5 weeks. And he's put in 6.5 with another investor, 6.5 million.
Yeah.
And he's doesn't have an accountant. He's a little bookkeeper. I'm like, okay, wait a second. I'm going to probably be able to save you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Can you just pay me $500 and I'll just show you my value? And it just we'll work there, and we'll raise the fees as you grow. And I get to determine what those fees are as we determine what all these aspects are. And I'll do the tax prep for $1,000 an entity, which is 17 entities or 19 entities, whatever it is, and then we'll just we'll work and continue to work. But the other thing that we haven't brought up, and I'm not sure if you talk about, is exits. I mean, there's another opportunity that you end up building up instead of becoming this W-2 employee, which I could have easily become when I first started this as a W-2 CFO. You're kind of building wealth for your family at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, accounting companies, accounting firms, whether if you're bookkeeping or if you're CPA, they can range, from 0.8 times 1 year's worth of revenues to 1.2 worth of revenues.
So that's a great point.
I think when you're remote, it gives an additional benefit because now it opens up the market completely to anywhere in the United States or even outside the United States.
So that's a great point to bring up. So a couple of things around that point. So whether you're a bookkeeper, enrolled agent, CPA, whatever, you build your practice up and you build it nationally, which we teach people to do, a remote
or even regionally, it doesn't matter.
And within CBD, cannabis, and hemp, there are going to be firms that want to get in and grow their practices through acquisitions. So yeah, say it's normally one-time sales, it might be 2x for this niche. And I know people, even when it was just Oregon legally only with Colorado and Washington, I knew 2 different bookkeepers that built a full-time practice even before I got in back in like 2013 and sold it. So that was way back when. So yeah, that's a good strategy as well for people that want to build something quickly and grow. But
it just depends. I mean, I think that you can build it to grow. You can build it and then have a side business and say, I'm going to split this up into 2 companies, and okay, I'll just do California and then I'll do the rest and then I'll sell just California. It just depends. But there's a lot of different pieces here. And so you end up building wealth for the family and others, whoever your partners are, than just, initially, okay, here's the income on a monthly basis.
Well, tell them, before we jump off, I want to make sure, tell us where business owners will hear this, and CEOs, where can they find you?
So I'm at www.yourhempcfo, yourhempcfo.com. And so if more than happy to assist and help, and if anyone's starting out and struggling, and we're just one shared community and really try to help. That's the biggest piece. And you never know where it might come out. You get tax returns, you get bookkeeping or whatever piece, but I think that is the big benefits as well.
That's awesome. So again, your hemp CFO, which is a
Yep.
great name by the way, especially as that gets better. So I'll wrap this up. The program we've been discussing is we're under Dope CFO. We call it our Cannabis Accounting 3.0 program. It's actually about 4.0 or 5.0. It gets better every day. It's a plug and play shortcut into the industry that can get you ready to serve this niche from start to finish.